Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a drama/thriller from Argentina, Spanish language English subs, released in the year 2009, directed by Mariano Cohn and Gaston Duprat, and this film is called The Man Next Door. So The Man Next Door is set in La Plata, Buenos Aires. You have a designer who is very well off, and he's actually quite famous in the designing world, and he has a neighbour. Now his neighbour is building a window in the complex so he can get a bit more sunshine, but the problem is the window looks directly into his property, and so he doesn't like this, especially this guy's wife. And so he goes to his neighbour, he asks his neighbour to basically stop doing this, but the neighbour says he really needs this done. So there's a bit of an argument between them throughout the film that gets worse and worse, and this main character starts to lose his mind, and in the end could lose a lot more. So whether or not that's the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I am going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Man Next Door. I was actually quite intrigued to see this film. Now this was actually shot in La Plata. Now I actually lived in La Plata for 2 years, and so I thought, oh, well, I'll watch this movie and see if I can recognise any places that this movie is in. So I actually recognised a few places, and that was interesting. But I was also wondering what this movie would produce as far as a thriller is concerned. I thought this had Roman Polanski-esque kind of vibes to it when I saw the trailer. I thought this is about neighboury relationships, and so I thought, well, okay, this is an Argentinian film, so obviously I want to give this every shot to impress me. After watching the film, I will say that I was not impressed. I thought this movie was very lackluster, it was very monotonous, all in the wrong ways. Now, there are some interesting elements to the film, but ultimately I don't really think the film knows what it wants to be. So to start off with, this has shades of Michael Haneke. The way the camera is used, it also has that shade of the Dogma movement, where you've got Thomas Vinterberg, who directed a movie called The Celebration. The Dogma movement was using, a handheld camera and basically documenting everyday life. These are situations that you could almost pass off as a real documentation. And this movie had that sort of Dogma-esque quality to it in the way that the movie was shot. I thought as though it was a fly-on-the-wall sort of aspect, and that aspect was by far the most impressive element, is that it does have a very low-budget feel, but the low-budget feel actually intensifies that sense of reality that the movie wants. So I thought that was decent. And I really liked the neighbour of Victor, played by Daniel Aroaz, who is a comedian. I thought his character was actually quite menacing. You're never quite sure what he would be capable of if he got really angry. And so I thought as though there was a slow mounting sort of tension that the film has that I thought captivated my interest. I really wanted to know how this movie would finish. But unfortunately, the movie just doesn't really amount to anything. I thought as though the climax, it was definitely an anti-climax. So the ending I thought was just really off-putting. And I felt as though I was cheated, is that the movie doesn't know what it wants to be. And so at the end of the day, it just fizzles out. It wants to be a movie that is going to provide thought-provoking qualities, and I know that if you are an Argentine local, you might get a little bit more out of this, because this is documenting class differences and attitudes towards each other, is that one class thinks they're better than the other, and how close in proximity these class differences are. And so if you are a native to Argentina, you might get a little bit more out of it, but unfortunately, as I said, it promises something that just doesn't really deliver. And I think that's down to the fact that the overall continuation and evolution of the story is non-existent. It's just going around in circles, and I felt like it was treading water. That the characters were all interesting, but what was this going to provide in the end? And unfortunately, the movie it feels as though it's bigging you up for something that you're not going to get. And so you feel cheated. You feel as though you're waiting for that awesome present under the Christmas tree, but when you unwrap it, it was absolute garbage. And so you feel to yourself, well, the anticipation was there, the anticipation was exciting, but unfortunately the payoff was just really, really disappointing. And so I'm not going to share the love that this Argentine film has. I wanted to love it because I thought as though that Roman Polanski-esque sort of quality mixed in with the Dogma-esque production that the film has. I thought it should have been a great film, but unfortunately the story just doesn't pose the confidence that the production has. And so in the end, what you get are very forgettable characters. I really dislike the main character, and because there's no real evolution to these characters, I didn't feel the pain that this main character felt. I didn't feel the tension. I didn't feel the stress. I just continuously waited to see what this neighbour would do. Is that the neighbour is by far the most interesting aspect. But as far as the main character is concerned, I didn't get the emotion that he was feeling. When he's feeling sad, I didn't know he was feeling sad until they cued the music. So it's really dictating how you should feel because of the fact that it doesn't do it naturally. And unfortunately, it needed a better script, it needed better characters, and it needed a story that could elevate itself to exciting levels. And I think definitely definitely thought as though the idea was there to really capitalise upon, but I don't feel as though the directors were quite good enough to execute it in a way that I really wanted to. So if you are into lower budget filmmaking and you want to see something that is fairly impressive as far as it looks, then I would recommend this film. But if you're after something that's going to be of typical Argentine quality, this movie, unfortunately, I believe, is overrated. So overall, I'm going to give this film 2 stars. I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion, especially with Argentinians, because this movie does have a lot of acclaim, but for me, I wanted a lot more, and I couldn't help but feel as though it was an anticlimax. So that's it for this review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.